We're involved in the gang life. How many of your friends or people you knew either overdosed or died or just went to prison for a long time?
Well,
lost
I
their
would
life?
say, and I got 25 names in my book, 25 friends, and even some Sangra guys that I knew because
Right.
they were their enemies. Some of them I
Yeah, you
grew up
still
with.
know 'em, yeah.
I knew them; they were friends up to a point. 25 died by the time I was 18, and majority killed in gang warfare. 4 were killed by police, unarmed. You know how the police were killing
Yeah.
us too. So there was a lot of heroin overdoses. I think at least one of them was suicide. But that's the world that I was in. As far as how many people went to the Pinta, I don't got no numbers, but it was everybody else. It was
Yeah,
almost like
yeah.
the Pinta was a big deal. Everybody was ready for it. It was prepared. Nobody was scared. Like they say, it's a deterrence for us.
No.
There's no deterrence.
We look at it like we're going to Harvard,
Exactly.
Yep.
That's our schooling. That's our
and that was still the way with you guys, huh?
It was, and it was kind of strange because it made you not want to prepare for anything else.
Oh, my
You're
God.
preparing for the crazy life, and that meant you got to go into the prisons and you got to be part of that world. It prepared you for something that we can be in top of, we can control, but we weren't prepared for jobs. We weren't prepared to own businesses. We weren't prepared for another world, just that world. And we were good at that world, I have to say. I don't think it was
Unfortunately.
Yeah, unfortunately,
Yeah.
it's true. But we were good in that world. There was nobody more prepared for the prison life than
the
Chicanos.
raza.
Yeah.
Everybody else kind of emulated the way we do things in order to be where they're at because we set the pattern.
And what do you think that was? Was it like older homies coming out and
Older homies were always important because you always listen to the older guys.
and even the guys out of YA and those guys?
All those guys. And they were, to me, older homies.
Yeah, of
They were
course.
18, 19.
Yeah.
I was 15, 16, and they were the big homies, but they really weren't that older than us. But once they come out of those institutions, they're all buff. They got all those tatuajes. They're all
chicas.
tats.
Ah,
You know,
yeah.
they got the placazos on their body, and they got the women. And
they got the talk, they
And
got
then
the
they got the
style.
best
Yeah.
drugs. And then you're like, hey, I want that life. At the time, they were.
looks good.
They looked
They
good.
were the thing.
Of course, a few years later, they're in bad shape.
Yeah,
you know?
yeah. By that
But
time,
by that time, your guys are in bad shape, and the guys below you,
Yeah.
and that's how the
And they looked up to us, and they thought we were the big deal, and so that's how we instigated that world. Again, a lot of lost boys, a lot of lost men, trying to help each other. Yeah, I think we loved each other. I think there's a lot of love in the body. I think there's a lot of things that I love about being in the neighborhood, but the terrible, dangerous, destructive things just overwhelmed
Yeah.
almost everything.
and
Yeah.
but
I was gonna say, like when I first heard about you, I was a freshman in high school. A teacher gave me your book, Always Running, and she was trying to figure out how to get me to pay attention, I guess. And she had gave me your book, and I was like, well, what's this? And she's like, no, read it. This guy, he can relate to you. So I was like, oh, okay. And I remember just like, yeah, whatever. It's another book. But as I'm reading it, and I started noticing that you were more like me because your family came from Juarez, El Paso. My family came from there. You guys moved to Watts. We went to Southgate. And then we branched out to other cities after that. And that's when I first learned about you, and I started reading that book. And I wish I still had that book today because that would have been awesome. I don't know what happened to it. Or my
Man.
mom probably.
But
threw it
I
away. don't
appreciate
know,
that because
you know?
when I wrote it, I actually wrote it for my son who
Okay.
was joined a gang in Chicago.
Mm-hmm.
He was 15 years old, and I didn't have anything else. I had a hard time guiding him. I didn't raise him, so he comes to me at 13 years old like, you ain't my dad. He's challenging me, and I'm like, I don't know what to do. I was really in bad shape, but what that book did, it helped me sober up completely. Because after I let go of the drugs, I was on drugs for about 7 years. Then I drank for 20 years.
Yeah.
I finally sobered up when that year the book came out. So it was connected to my helping my son and knowing that I had to be sober and ready for this challenge. I had another son born with my third wife, and then another son came later. And then I have my daughter. So I said, I got to be there for my kids. And it woke me up. It got me, I got to do this. So that's how Always
So
Ready came
was that
out.
one of your first books?
Well, I actually had a poetry book just before that. Maybe I had a couple poetry
we'll get
books.
to that.
All right.
You're jumping the gun.
Yeah. But it was the big book.
But
it was
but
the most
the
important
great
book.
thing that you were saying, that book not only changed your guys' life, it changed a lot of people's lives. man.
Well, that's what I was
And
going to
that's what it's
say.
about.
I didn't know it was going to have that impact. I wrote it for my son. I wrote it for kids like him.
Uh-huh.
But man, it started moving quickly. I got on all the big TV shows: Good Morning America, Oprah Winfrey, Entertainment Weekly.
You were with Oprah?
I was with Oprah.
Man,
I was.
we're
It was.
doing
I was.
big things right here,
but you know
baby.
what? Why? 'Cause-
Oprah, look at us now.
Exactly. But you know what it was is it came out a year after the LA uprising.
Oh, okay.
So now everybody's
Yeah.
interested in LA gangs. And there was one book, Shaika Shakur's Monster, about
right.
the black gangs, and then there was no Chicano, but I had one.
Yeah.
I had the Chicano side of the story, which was important because it was an important part of that whole LA life
yes.
and uprising. So I just hit the right time. It was like the best time. Somebody even said, "Hey man, did you start the rights just to get your book?" Like, no. I wish I could. I couldn't do it.
You actually lost a friend because you talk also a lot about the sheriffs and their racism. You lost a friend to the sheriffs, right?
So the sheriffs killed two, my best homies, my best friends. Two of them were killed by sheriffs, and so I tell that story because they were unarmed. They shouldn't have been killed, but it's part of the life. They attacked us, they beat us up, they challenged us. There was a lot of racism. Almost all these sheriffs at the time were white. There might have been one or two Chicanos, but they were all part of the police thing.
Part of the badge.
And they hate us. We gave them names. We gave them like Cowboy, Bofo, Red. We gave them all these names because they were like another gang. So we might as well give them Placazos too, you know.
Yeah.
And so they killed my two best homies. They got to a point I didn't want any close homies. If anybody got close to me, I didn't want to get close to them because you're gonna get killed, dude. I was almost thinking I was the jinx.
How old were the homies?
Well, one was I think 17. The other one was 18.
They're kids.
They were kids, just babies, just starting. And just to let you know how complicated it is, the last homie that got killed, the close homie that got killed in this thing. I was trying to bring the two barrios together. We were trying to do trucing,
Yes.
which is very
between who?
difficult, but it was Lomas and Sangra.
Okay.
I was trying to do it. I was getting tired of everybody dying.
Yeah.
Like I said, I knew guys in Sangra. I mean, we used to all hang together, and then they go to one high school, go to one other high school. Now we're killing each other.
Yeah.
So I was trying to bring them together, but the police and the sheriffs didn't want this. They did everything to undermine it, and what they did is they infiltrated the gangs, both of them. And so some of the guys, and informants, some of the guys played the game of instigating the warfare
Right.
Yeah.
against what I was doing. And I think that's how two of my homeboys are very true. One of them was my best friend, and one wasn't, but they both got shot at once, and I think it was through the instigation of the police, the sheriffs.
That also had somewhat to do of you kind of pushing away from the gang. No, some of the guys didn't like what you were doing. with that
Yes,
piece.
and what I was doing is not leaving the gang. I still never left the gang, never got jumped out, but I didn't like the warfare. And then I started realizing because I was being mentored by the Chicano activists. The Chicano
That's where we're gonna
movement
get
was,
to.
was very hopeful. And they were giving me another vision of the world, but they weren't telling me to leave the neighborhood so much. It's just, dude, why are you guys killing each other? And they gave me the background, the political background, all these developers with money, like you were saying,
Like
just
we're
a piece
talking
of paper.
earlier, right.
They got a piece of paper, they got us, and here we are killing each other, and then they're getting rid of our neighborhoods, which is what happened in Lomas and parts of Sangra. So what happened is I said, hey, man, we'll bring peace. I thought that was the best thing. And I wasn't the only one. There was a lot of people. All the Maravilla gangs were trying to unite. There was a lot of it. But it was getting undermined. Undermined by homies, but also the police and or sheriffs particularly, but also them using homies. And people got to know that that's what happened. They infiltrated a lot of barrios. And all they have to do is infiltrate one or two guys. They don't take a lot. The guys that call a lot of shots, but they're all heroin addicts. You know how easily heroin addicts can be used? How you can be owned.
Yeah.
And so
Yes.
some of them went along with it, and they undermined the peace that we were trying to do.
So for a minute there was some guys in Lomas that these are older gentlemen by now that
Yeah.
didn't like what you were doing, trying to make peace. You even
Yeah.
wrote about one in the book, right?
So the one guy that I found out later was an informant.
No way.
I didn't know it at the time. So he challenged me in front of everybody. He actually punched me in the mouth, which is really like, hey man, this is like the worst thing you can do. I should have beat the heck out of him right there and then, but out of like respect for him, I don't know why I respect the neighborhood so much. I wasn't going to jump him. I probably could have beat him up, but I didn't, and I should have, but I didn't, but I still stood my ground. You guys are being used, man. We're being used for somebody else's game. They didn't believe me, and then one night, him and another homeboy shot at me.
Oh, wow.
And that was the kicker that
I'm gone.
Yeah.
destroyed everything for me. I didn't know what to do. You know, when you get betrayed by your own homeboys, and again, it wasn't the whole neighborhood. A lot of guys were with me. A lot of guys agreed with
But
me.
they were the shot callers at the time.
They were the guys calling the shots, and they were saying, we're going to war, and you can't stop it. And they went after me because I was the guy saying,
Trying to
"You
make
shouldn't do
peace."
that."
Yeah.
Trying to make peace.
They think you're doing weakness, but in reality, in hindsight, you were the stronger out of all of them because you were seeing something that most men don't see until later on in the future.
And then those guys are gone. They're not around. And they did all this damage, and the damage is still there. I mean, the neighborhoods are still at war. And so, and then I get the pinta and everybody unites, but the wars gets taken on to other levels.
Yes.
So it never stops. We never stop being warfare. We never stop warfare.
Did you ever have any conversations with any of the guys that were there around that time, or they were on?
A few years ago, because of my sobriety, I started hanging around with some of the guys that are now clean. They've been doing 20, 30 years in prison.
Oh, God.
Heroin addicts for 20, 30 years. Now they're clean. And now I'm open to them because I would never go back to the neighborhood to talk to guys who are still using. You know how it is. Everybody will still bring you down. I said, dude, if you need help, I'll help, but I can't deal with you if you're still
in that negativity.
So these guys came to me and they were already clean, and they said, we know what you're doing, and we want to. And they said they supported what I was doing.
Good.
These are the older guys, my age, that ran a lot of stuff, did a lot of damage, but now some of them are Christians, some of them are just sober, some of them are just. And I said,
just trying to live the last few years they got left.
Exactly, and I'm saying that's good. You got it now. I mean. You might just, I'm all honor you for being that kind of a man, being a grandfather, being the men that we need. So I hooked up with my homies. I even brought my son over to meet them, get to know some of these old guys.
I forgot to ask you what they call you from the clica.
That was Chin.
Chin,
man. That was, well, the story is that when I was 9 years old, I got jumped, and it cracked my jaw. I didn't break it, but just cracked it, and the growth came out and it pushed my whole jaw off. So ever since then, I was like the ugliest kid around. Everybody made fun of me, man. The girls called me monkey. Nobody liked me. But
awesome.
Guess who embraces you?
Ooh.
The barrio.
That's us, right?
The neighborhood, the homies.
That's
and
the
then they
homie
say,
Chin right there.
and then they say, "You're Chin, bro. This is you."
Chin.
You know?
I kept saying you got Chin coming out, but I thought they were saying short for Chino.
Yeah, so did I.
Yeah, so
No, I
you
know.
said Chin, and then you
No, I
said
know.
Chin.
And in fact, I got all these tattoos, but I wanted one tattoo I never did get of a Chinaman,
Yeah.
a chin underneath it.
I'll hook you up, man. I got the boy right
Yeah,
here.
yeah, yeah.
Podcast, I'm gonna hook you up.
Yeah. So, but the thing was Chin. That was my placazo. And so my parents tried to get it fixed. They had no money, but they said, you got to get it fixed. And I go, You know why? Identify with it.
Yeah.
I should have got it fixed, man, because to this day, I only got 3 places where my teeth meet.
Oh, because
It's all off. So my teeth are all messed up, and I never fixed it. I'm still dealing with it, man. I said, man, I regret. I should have done it then, but it's all right.
So, oh God, Chin, that's perfect. That's perfect, Chin. So now let's rewind it a little bit and go into the mentor part of it. Who was that mentor of you? And let's get into a little bit of the uprisings and Salazar and all that stuff. You can go through that.
So I want to say that this guy was he was one of the founders of the Brown Berets.